What's Gucci, guys? Today we're going to be doing an intellectual tier list in Enneagram subtypes. Now, don't confuse intellectual with intelligent. Now, with intelligence, you can have an SP2 who's more intelligent than, I don't know, an SP7. Things like that do happen. So there's much more variety. It's not really related to a type. Now, intellectualism indeed can be related to your type, right? By intellectual, I mean propensity towards abstraction, towards kind of philosophy, towards artistic interests, towards pursuits that are intellectual, right? Solving difficult things, focusing on things that require much more brain power. That's basically what I mean by intellectual. So basically, imagine your average geek, an intellectual geek who likes to read about everything and likes to engage in the information, problem solve, and all of that thing. That is intellectualism, starting with the S tier, which is the big daddy dumb intellectual. Obviously, you need to put the biggest geek that has ever lived. And the biggest geek that has ever lived is SO5. The totem of knowledge. Obviously, they want to become the experts, right? They want to become the totem of knowledge for everyone to follow, to have impact. Very focused on expertise, but fives in general are extremely abstract, introverted, intuitive people who have very high openness to experience. They're very abstract, they're very focused on different patterns, they're very logically inclined, so a lot of the problem solving that they'll all have, right? And again, they pride themselves on being smart, on being the expert in the group. So again, SO5, the biggest geek of them all. Easy peasy, lemonade squeezy. Then I would put SO7 in the big daddy dumb intellectual. Why SO7? Listen, so many characters are typed SO5 when they're actually SO7. And you see this with the ENTP SO5, right? They're all SO7. They're confused because they're both intellectual. SO7 is an extremely intellectual type. Very focused on learning, very focused on, again, playing with different possibilities, different abstract opportunities. They're all up there. Circle-jerking systems. Most of them, like known geeks in typology or sciences, many of them are SO7. After that, we put SO6. Now, no one thought that would be, right? But SO6 is, of course, we very often seen in academic environments. Sometimes even more than SO5s or other like subtypes, right? So those people are very focused on academic, very linear, very logical, very curious to understand things, understand systems, and I think they have a big potential to be that big daddy dumb intellectual, right? Because think about it, LII SO6, that's an intellectual geek. That's peak intellectualism. And that combination happens very often. Category A, with tier A, you have intellectually oriented or a circle jerker. He's just not a full-blown basement dweller. So there are levels to this shit. Then I would start with SX5 actually. Where the fuck is SX5? SX5. Now people told me to put SX6 first. No, I'm not gonna put SX6 over SX5. Why would I? SX6 is an LSI, SX5 is an ILI, IAI. Both much more, oftentimes, much more intellectual than an LSI ever would be. So I'm gonna put SX5. High artistic interest, extremely high openness to experience, focus on abstraction, focus on different possibilities, pursue their intellectual interests, gain knowledge. They all have those traits in spades. They deserve the A spot, intellectual circle jerker. Then we can play around with SX6. Think someone like Vladimir Putin. Think someone like Bobby Fischer, right? Those individuals, they don't seem geeky, but they're still very intellectual, right? Again, they often pursue intellectual pursuits and intellectual hobbies, right? So they're in their heads a lot. They systemize information. They want to understand things. Makes sense. They circle jerk all of that shit. SO2 might be a hot take. Listen, they use intellectualism often to lure people to be seen as a very powerful person. So intellect is a big part of it. I wasn't too sure where to put SP7. People told me, oh, you need to put SP7 maybe even higher. But I thought, SP7, degenerate, right? Many of them alcoholics, fucking degenerates. I don't have a strong opinion on SP7. They are obviously sensorical in many ways, but they pursue mental stimulation as much as they often pursue physical. So this mental stimulation is what's gonna cause, again, this intellectualism. Think about, I guess, Dr. House, many people say, oh, he must be a 5-core. He's not a 5-core. I do think he's probably SP7. SP7 ILE, FI polar as fuck. Makes sense. So with him, he's a very intellectual guy, and you see this mental stimulation playing around with those mental ideas while still being a degenerate. So I could still see a case for SP7 being in the A tier easily. Maybe we can even argue SP7 should be above SO2. Actually, you know what? Let's fucking do that. Then we have B tier, which is Geeky. I would put SP5. Can seem almost sometimes as the most brain-dead 5-core. Right? If I'm not mistaken, they can be the most brain-dead 5-core. Not as interested in intellectualism. Many people argue SLI can be SP5. So as you can fucking imagine, probably there's not much thinking going on overall. Just if you're SP5, call yourself a pseudo SP9. Because at the fucking end of the day, that's pretty much the same fucking thing. I would put SP6. Don't sleep on those motherfuckers. Don't sleep on them. Okay? They're very curious. They want to understand things. Their fantasy world is very developed. 1L and Psychosophy. They deserve the geeky placement here. Then I'll probably go with SO1. Now, SO1, Ben Shapiro, Ube Geek. A true SO1 wouldn't fucking explain shit. So I'm not gonna explain shit either. C tier, which is they often use their brain, and here I would put SX7. Now SX7 being the most disabled of all 7s. So at the end of the day, they're very, magical thinking, delusional thinking. Oh yeah, flying fucking cars. They can come up with all kinds of ideas. Still intuitive person. So they deserve the C tier. Then I would go with SX4. Shocker. But SX4s are quite intellectual. Even it is something that Naranjo talked about. That they're the most intellectually inclined. Now you think, but you say like SX4s like Mike Tyson. And also like Tentacion. So they're not intellectual. Well, you'd be surprised. Mike Tyson is very clearly an inquisitive type. Again, since he was young, extremely focused on like learning stuff, obsessed about history, had some artistic appreciation of art. This guy has some artistic interest and even goes on philosophical tangents. So there is a component of kind of weird geeky intellectualism you can see in Mike Tyson. Is it in a logical way? No, not like in a SX6 way, but still that SX4 shit pops up. SO4. Now, people told me put SO4 in D tier. I'm not sure I would do that. Because SO4, again, I'm not gonna fucking do that. Clear artistic interests, philosophical interests, so I would still put them here. After that, I would probably put SO3, mainly because very intuitive type still, always thinking about the future, and they do use information and knowledge probably as means to appear more of a higher social standing, of higher social status, right? So that knowledge represents exactly that. Right? Oh, look at me, I'm so smart. Look at me, I'm so intelligent. So, while the motivation is a bit different, the result is the same. So, Social 3 still has that knowledge to back it up, and that intellectualism that helps them climb the social ladder and achieve what they want. You're probably getting into the most disabled types category, the God types and all the like weird image types, right? Some of the image types. I would put SP1. People told me, again, put SX1 here. Why would the most monkey subtype of 1-core be the most intellectual? I didn't understand it, so I put SP1 because fuck it. That was my mentality. Then I would put SX1, the most monkey of 1-cores, really. Then I would put SO8. Now this is gonna be a bit controversial because people are like, well, SO8 is not the most intellectual. By definition of Naranjo. Naranjo changed his mind. It's SP8. But I've seen in real life examples that does indicate that this subtype might be more intellectual. Famous people I've seen typed as SO8, those that I can confirm, they had many intellectual pursuits and interests, very inquisitive people. So I think there is still a case for SO8 being the most intellectual. Now, so it depends how Naranjo will define it in the books in the end. Then I would go SP3. Not as much circle jerking to knowledge, not as much using knowledge to gain ahead, not as much gaining knowledge to get an upper hand to use and exploit. SO3. So we're gonna put it in D tier. They're just a friendly, responsible neighborhood NPC. I'll still put SP8 in the same category as I'll put SO8. Now, SP8 is defined as the most intellectual 8 because they use different methods to gain upper hand. In that sense, okay, sure. But from personal experiences, looking at the actual examples, comparing them to those individuals who are type SO8, there's a big difference. There is not much that is like philosophical bullshit, the artistic interest, circle jerk. You don't see those. You don't see that in this subtype. Usually much more grounded kind of a person. Now E tier, which is brain left the chat, sort of. It's kind of like you're flatlining and you don't know what the fuck to do. Here I would put SP4. I honestly didn't know what the fuck to do with the subtype, okay? They're the most grounded, so I didn't expect as much intellectualism from SP4. But if you argue otherwise and give good arguments, we can move it somewhere else, right? It works to move it somewhere else. Now put SP2, mainly because SP2s are slept on when it comes to intellectualism. They can still want to be intelligent and want to be seen as intellectual, but it's often in motivation of getting the admiration from a person or someone that they admire or they love. They want to kind of use that intellectualism as look at me, I'm not just a dumb fuck, I'm not just a monkey. That can happen with self-preservation too. Then I would get SO9, don't fucking know, don't fucking care. Then I'll put SP9, don't fucking know, don't fucking care. SX3, ESC. Do I need to say more? You're fucking an Apollo. Obviously, you're not gonna be the fucking pinnacle of fucking intellect. We have F tier, which is you need a brain transplant. That's the bottom feeders. Those are the individuals who using brain is just not in their cards, okay? And if they use their brain, if you see them using their brain, you should give them a fucking round of applause. You should pat them on the motherfucking back, be like, okay, good, you used your brain. Good job, clap, 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 right? SX9, right? Then we put SX2, anti-intellectual as fuck, really represses those fucking intellect, it silences its intellect and just acts on its feelings. It's a very impulsive, very emotional type. There's no intellectualism in this type, like, no. And last one, SX8, a gut type, at the end of the day, an 8 core, which is anti-intellectual, and they're not even emotionally aware and not even emotionally intelligent. So those things make it the most brain dead, combined with the most anti-intellectual subtype that disconnects from intellect and brain to follow emotion. Naranjo has put SX8 as emotion in his little triad, right? So that's why I would put SX8 over SX2, because SX2 still has that space for the emotionality, for emotional intelligence, and the artistic edge that probably will not be as visible in SX8. So that is the list, guys. Now, if you disagree with anything, as we do always, run down below. Let's have a little discussion about this, and let's find out the true placement of those types. Ciao.